Best of r/malicious compliance episode 112. Subscribe for Reddit videos daily. So this happened in Hawaii. Lahu, a Kappa man facing 6 months in jail told a judge he wanted the full 5-year sentence. He got it. Kyle Neuberger pleaded no contest to a felony charge earlier this year, a month after he broke into a home in Wailoa. His original charge, first-degree burglary, a Class B felony that carries a maximum penalty of 10 years in jail, was reduced to a less serious offense, and prosecutors recommended he serve only 6 months, plus 4 years probation, according to court documents. That all changed Thursday morning, when he appeared in court for sentencing. Before Fifth Circuit Judge Randall Valenciano handed down the sentence, he allowed one of Neuberger's victims to testify. A woman who lived in the home stood before the judge and told her story of what happened on the night of the 2nd of March, when she returned home with her granddaughter, who opened their garage door and saw a large man running out of the house toward the beach. "I'm here for Kyle, who broke into our family's home," said the woman, whose name is being withheld at her request. "I believe he needs some type of rehabilitation." The woman went on to explain that her children went to high school with Neuberger and had seen him around town for years afterward, watching as he slowly devolved from a star athlete in high school to a middle-aged man with increasingly obvious problems. "I understand he was a very good baseball player," she said. An archived post on the University of Hawaii at Hilo's athletics website references a dominating pitching performance by Kyle Neuberger that allowed the UH baseball team to win the second game of a doubleheader in April 2005. The home intrusion traumatized the family, according to the woman, who told the judge she no longer feels safe on the property and said her granddaughter now has to attend weekly therapy sessions. Still, the woman did not appear to be in court seeking revenge. She stopped just short of asking Valenciano to be lenient on Neuberger, who stood quietly, looking down at the table in front of him while she spoke. "We want to make sure he gets help," she concluded. "I don't want to see him on the streets anymore." And that's the end of the story. The woman finished talking and went back to her seat near the back of the courtroom, and Judge Valenciano turned to Neuberger, asking whether he would like to make a statement on his own behalf before sentencing. Neuberger leaned over and muttered something inaudible in the ear of his attorney, Deputy Public Defender Stephanie Cha. When Valenciano asked for a clarification, Neuberger spoke up. "I just want the 5, he said. Cha tried to shut him up, but Neuberger was insistent. "I'm sorry for what I did. I didn't intend to stay in the residence," he continued. "I was kind of out of my mind. I believe I deserve the 5-year term." Cha scrambled to save her client from himself and asked the judge to call another case so she could talk things over with Neuberger before he did any more damage. "Do you want to talk to her?" Valenciano asked Neuberger, who shook his head. "Nah, I'm good. I understand," he replied. "I've been thinking about this for months." Cha sighed. Her arms dropped to her sides. "On behalf of Mr. Neuberger, I request the open 5-year term," she said. Deputy Prosecuting Attorney Anthony Herndon, who 5 minutes before had been ready to read a prepared statement that ended with a request for a 6-month sentence, shrugged his shoulders, set his papers down and asked the judge for 5 years in jail. Valenciano gave everyone what they asked for. "Good luck, Mr. Neuberger," he said. Later, in the hall, the woman sat alone, visibly shaken by what had happened. "I didn't come here today to do that," she said. TL. Doctor, a defendant pleads down his sentence to only 6 months and 4 years probation, but asks for the full 5-year sentence instead. The judge gladly agrees. "Thank you." Next. Obligatory. "I'm on my phone and it makes my spelling and grammar suck sometimes. I really hope this belongs here. I used to work for a fairly well-known chain of buffalo wing eateries. You know, the ones with the 27 huge screens and screaming fans of every sport. We had a family dining area and this particular Saturday night in walks Karen with her slew of kids and adults all wanting celebrate a birthday. Table for 20? No problem. Of course, Karen isn't paying for everyone, so they all line up to the cashier booth to order and birthday boy is first. He appears to be around 10-12 years old and he peers over the counter at me and says he wants the 24 blazing wings. If you know our store, you know our sauces. Blazing was the spiciest sauce we had. So spicy that you needed gloves if you were going to have prolonged contact. I told the kid that those wings were very hot, and maybe he'd like to try our sweet barbecue or even our hot sauce. The kid throws a fit. My manager is behind me and Karen is berating me for not giving her precious birthday boy what he wanted. My manager whispers for me to just give him what he wants, so I puts in his order and apologize to Karen. Then I place everyone else's orders. By the time the last of the 20 were ordering, the first was getting their food. Who do you think comes to the counter with a tray of 24 blazing wings? Karen, of course. She is irate and screaming over the din of cheering spectators. How dare I give her poor precious child something so spicy that it burns his mouth. She wants a refund not just for his wings, but for their whole family's meal. She's threatening lawyers and medical bills, and sure enough she had to ask the age-old Karen adage. Let me speak to your manager. So I go tell him what's happened, and I do feel bad because I have a soft spot for kids, even the evil ones. He comes out and tells Karen that he was present when I told her and the kid they were too hot, and he heard her insist that they be given to him. He pointed to the cameras and mentioned the microphones and informed her she would not be getting any money back, and the kid would not be getting a replacement. If he wanted a different flavor, she could buy it, or he could eat what he ordered. She gave us a terrible review, but that kid coming back with his mommy, crying after eating what I told them both was too hot was something special to me, and I still remember it to this day. Thank you. Next. This happened when I worked in retail around 2005. I was 16. I was working at a very small grocery store, and although it was a small store we were always busy, as it was near a popular beach and along a highway rest area. The night before, I'd worked from 12 AM until 6 AM packing shelves. There was a huge delivery coming and that had to be stocked for the next day. I was offered double time pay for the shift, so I jumped at chance to work it. At 12 PM that afternoon, 6 hours after finishing the packing shift and barely getting 5 hours of sleep, I got a call from the assistant manager, Fran, who wanted me to come in to work a shift. I explained that I'd just finished a shift and had only had a few hours sleep. Fran, but the other girl has called in sick and you're the closest person. I lived in the motel next door. My family were managing the motel at this point. Me. Too naive to know that I didn't legally have to come in and should have been paid overtime for working back-to-back shifts. Fine, but I'm working on 5 hours sleep, so don't expect me to do much. I got dressed and walked like a zombie to the store. When I arrived we were extremely quiet, with the occasional customer every 10 minutes or so. I was surprised she called me in at all, considering that even on a busy day, one person can't run the store on their own. Fran, around 2 PM. I'm going on my break. Will you clean the store while I'm gone? I picking up a duster, knelt down on my knees and proceeded to dust underneath the shelves. It had been thoroughly cleaned during the 6-hour packing shift I'd done a few hours ago, so it didn't need mopped. Fran, no, not like that. You need to get under the shelf to clean it. Me, why can't you do it? I'm exhausted and I'm doing my best not to fall asleep on the spot. I'd informed her that I'd done the midnight packing shift. Fran, you have to do it. I have a bad back. Fran then proceeded to grab the duster and lean down, against O&S bending guidelines, and dusted underneath the shelf to demonstrate, making it look easy for someone who claimed to have a bad back. Fran, I'm going on my 15-minute break and by the time I come back I want the floors to be spotless. Me, absolutely. Spotless. Gotcha. It was 2:02 PM at this point and I knew that any minute now there would be a tour bus arriving. It arrived around 2 PM every day. Cue the malicious compliance. I started cleaning under every shelf and every display like my life depended on it, and a few minutes after Fran had left, customers began to trickle in. But I was under strict instructions to only clean under the shelves. Customers began to queue at the register. This was before there was self-serve registers. Customer, after noticing I was there but not serving them, hello? Are you working? Can I get some service please? Me, I'm so sorry sir. Bringing out my innocent puppy dog eyes and red, tear-dusted eyes from lack of sleep. I was told I had to clean the floors and I wasn't allowed to do anything else. I really don't want to lose my job. The customer stormed out of the store and a few minutes later, came back with Fran in tow. She had been outside smoking. Customer, addressing Fran, This poor young lady is in tears because you threatened her job. Fran, you have to stop doing this to your staff. Frank, the manager in charge of Fran, will be hearing about this. Me, feeling brave and empowered by this, I told you I'm working on 5 hours of sleep after working all night with Frank packing shelves. I'm going to go home to sleep. I believe you have some customers that need serving. I was so tired and angry that I didn't care if I was fired, so I went home and slept for most of the afternoon. It turned out that that customer was one of Frank's close friends and was the driver of the tour bus that arrived every day. I turned up to work my regular shift the next day and explained to Frank everything that had happened and how Fran had treated me. He told me to go back to work and he would take care of it. Fran got a harsh talking to about her behavior and conduct in the workplace and was let go. This was her final warning, as she had been doing this for months to other staff members. Assistant managers don't have as much power as they think they do. Oh, and her bad back, she didn't have any back issues. She just used this excuse to not have to do anything at work. I never saw Fran in work uniform after that, but she did come in from time to buy groceries. We were the only grocery store in the area, apart from a takeaway shop. I'd always give the same hi. Welcome to store location. How are you today? With the biggest poo-eating grin on my face. Boy, was that sweet. Thank you. Next. Okay, so before I start, don't expect this to be some massive thing where I completely embarrass my boss or something. It's quite small, but I was proud as I've put up with this shit for 3 years now. Anyway, on with the story. So I work in retail, and in my store there is a main till that has to be manned at all times unless it's quiet, as all the lighters, vape equipment and sprays are there. We had just closed but still had a few customers in the store as we don't tend to rush anyone out. Near the till is a battery bay that was looking quite messy, and as it was quiet I went to sort it out before the next customer came. My boss saw me and started berating me for it while another co-worker stood behind him, being as smug as ever. There's a group in this store that all the managers favor and she's minutes it, but that isn't really relevant here. He started raising his voice saying it was irresponsible of me as someone could walk out, which is impossible as they'd have to walk straight past me to leave. I think fuck it, and to not cause any more shit, go and stand behind the till. My till was running low on bags, so I pull out one of the boxes from under the till and fill it up, emptying the box. I break it down and put it on the side, as that's the only place I can put it. Not 2 minutes later, the manager comes back, followed by his shadow, and he asks me to put the box in the warehouse. My response? Nope. You just berated me for not being on the till, so I'm staying right here. He shot me daggers and they both walked away. Sorry this isn't as impressive as some of the others on here, but I was really proud of myself as I never stand up for myself. Thank you. Next. So this recently happened and thought I'll share it. University has its share of professors that want to help as well as those that want to make it hard as possible to simply pass the course. The lecturer I had was of the latter. In January, she talked mostly of her interests without teaching us. It was a research class. When asked about the course lessons, we got a snarky "don't worry about the materials. Everything you need to know," I'll say. At first I was glad she didn't stick to the given schedule, but couple weeks in I had other thoughts. Fast forward to when online classes was a definite thing. I started recording the online lessons to review over the materials. Time and time again she gave empty criticisms of our proposals and questionnaires. On one beautiful day, the exchange between her and a student went like this. S. Teacher, what should we do about the research design diagram? T. As I kept saying to you all, I will tell you what needs to be done. What I don't specifically point out or say is not of importance. In other words, I'm telling you all what I'm going to use to mark your papers. S. Dejected. Okay, I understand. After class, I texted my friend and repeated our teacher's words and asked if she said anything about sources. My friend said number. Thus, my plot for malicious compliance began. Now, I know for my university research older than 10 years and textbooks were not supposed to be used, but only few lecturers adhered to that. While gathering articles, I added articles older than 10 years and 2 textbooks. Once the research was finished, I took the lesson and got the audio of her strictly explaining that what she doesn't say is of no importance. When the due date came, I happily submitted it to her and waited for her to contact me. She sent me a message a few days later and the glorious conversation was as follows. T. I noticed that you had a couple of articles before 2010 and 2 textbooks as sources. Me. Yes mom. I do. T. You know this is going to hurt your grade badly, right? Me. I honestly believe my grade will be just fine. T. And why are you so confident in that? I then took the audio from the lesson and sent it to her. T. Why did you send me that? Me. I just wanted you to know that you didn't say we couldn't use them. And, like how you said, if you don't mention it, it's of no importance in terms of grading. She didn't reply after that and I got my grade back about 4 days after. I don't know what makes me happier, getting back at her or the B+ for my final grade. Thank you. Next. A long time I was working at a well-respected and expensive consulting business who were renting an office. They'd spent good money installing aircon and making the reception area pretty decent and other work like interior walls, shelving, high quality decor etc. When the tenant company wanted to move out, the contracts said they had to restore the building back as it was, but they asked the landlord to allow them to walk away and not return the building back to the more basic shell it had been, which would have meant leaving the aircon in and not having to remove the fancy reception area, remove walls, partitions, shelving, etc. This would have been a win-win for both parties. For some reason the landlord said no, and despite attempts to persuade them, they were adamant. The tenant said okay, and ripped everything out including tens of thousands of aircon, leaving the landlord with an empty shell again, which proved harder to rent out and attracted lower rent. The building was empty for quite a while. About 4 years later I worked there when another company had leased it. The building was horribly hot in summer because of the lack of aircon, and the reception looked cheap and nasty, nowhere near as nice as it had been. The offices were carpeted but obviously the cheapest stuff was fitted. I told my new employer that the building had been much nicer and with aircon and they were stunned that the stupid landlord had wasted the opportunity. Thank you. Next. Context. My parents will absolutely lose their shit if me or my sister use our phones while having meals. Some smaller, but still bombastic pet peeves are leaving my phone in vibration mode and plugging my phone into the wall outlet near me. I do this because of the better and cooler airflow compared to my relatively boxed off room. Keeps the phone cool while charging. Trigger. So yesterday afternoon, a friend of mine called while I was having lunch. I answered, asked if it was anything important, had a little banter, and we were done. In and out, less than a minute. My mom sees that and, obviously, chaos ensues. She screams at me saying that I should let all my friends know that I'm going away for meals, and that they shouldn't call/text then. Very practical. It blows over, and soon, it's dinner time. Mind you, they're still pissed at me. Compliance. I left my phone to charge inside the room, left it on ringer, and told a few friends that I'm going for dinner. Malicious compliance. I left a fresh and hot philosophical question/scenario in the biggest group I am part of, which is 6 people aside from me, and a few minutes later, it lit up the entire group like a freebie during Christmas. I also left my laptop open, with WhatsApp web running in the background. It has a software that'll mirror notifications from my phone, so that's twice the pings from my laptop. Within minutes my parents were starting to lose it again. I quite innocently replied that I could maybe stop them from calling/DMing me personally, but I can't do anything about groups, right? And they were the ones who insist I'll leave the phone on ringer, and in the room, and not use it all during meals, so my hands were tied. Consequence, they let me go to mute the phone, but they got even more pissed off. The point got across though, and while they don't know about the initial pebble, they full well knew that I didn't do anything about the ripples that came after on purpose. I'm curious if it'll stick though. These sort of things are hit and miss with my parents. Edit. Because a few of you mentioned it, I have to point out that we don't eat at a table, much less at the same time. They've developed a much different schedule than us because of their jobs. Also, I don't actively use my phone while eating. The best spot to keep it cool while charging, especially in the summer. Ambient temps are always in the high 30s or low 40s, just so happens to be near my preferred spot, quite likely for the same reason.